Hello friends, this is another video on Unit 4 named as Consumer Behavior, and in this video I will be covering the learning objective number 2, that is the difference between industrial and consumer markets and what are the factors that affects consumer behavior. This is very important unit, and first of all talking about the difference between industrial and consumer marketing. So the areas that we are capturing or the parameters that we are working upon is the product, price, place, promotion, and we are trying to create the differentiation between the industrial markets and the consumer market. So first of all, talking about the market characteristics. See, in case of industrial markets, the markets are geographically concentrated and we have got relatively fewer buyers. Whereas in consumer markets, the market is geographically dispersed and we have got mass buyers. When it comes to product characteristics, the products are technical in nature. They're designed in a customized way for industrial markets, whereas in case of consumer markets, the products are standardized in nature. With respect to the service categories, the good service, timely delivery, availability is very important because in case of industrial marketing, the work of the industrial marketeer gets suffered in case if there is an error in broadband, so internet, the entire plant, the entire office is going to suffer. In case if there is any breakdown in machine, so the production would be at halt. So, that would be a difficult situation. There are companies, if the internet doesn't work, and if it, is not working for 2, 3 hours, so there are 100 people who are waiting for internet to come. For banking also, the internet is a huge issue because these days companies are working on applications and clouds. So that's why the internet is very important. Server connectivity is very important, be it any domain most of the time, service especially. So, the products in B2B domain, service is very important. Early rectification of the complaint is of main priority. So we would like to go with those brands that provides early recovery. Whereas in case of consumer markets, it is not that important because we still have 24 hours to wait in case of consumer market. However, timely delivery is important also in B2C. But to some extent, it is somewhat important. But in case of industrial market, it is highly important. Going further, what is the buyer behavior? So there are different stages in case of consumer market as compared to the industrial market. See, the involvement of the members in case of industrial market, there are a lot of departments who are involved, whereas in case of consumer market, there are family members who are involved. Purchase decisions are mainly made, by the team in case of industrial market, whereas purchase decisions are mostly made on the psychological characteristics or the social characteristics or the physiological characteristics in B2C segment. However, in B2C, it is more of rational and more of performance-based decisions. I like to take the example of the double tape as a product in exhibition industry. See, when the exhibition is happening and the quality of the double tape is not good, so the graphic would fall automatically due to the heat or due to the lightning provision on to that particular graphic. But there is an example of 3M company. They have understood the problem and they have designed a double tape in such a fashion that any heat condition double tape will not fall, graphic will not fall. So the performance is higher. So the companies would like to opt for 3M instead of a local double tape brand. That is very important industrial marketing. The performance and the rationale of buying is of high priority. See, in industrial marketing, there are technical experts who are involved in decision making. But in consumer marketing, there is no technical. There are less of technical experts are involved. In industrial market, it is a stable interpersonal relationship between buyer and seller. Whereas in consumer marketing, it is since it is non-personal relationship is happening most of the time. If you talk about the channel of distribution aspects in case of industrial markets, it is more direct channel of distribution is adopted. So there are fewer intermediaries, fewer middlemen. For example, let's say Munjal Shova as a supplier is dealing with Maruti. So there is no middleman, there is direct interaction is happening. Whereas in case of consumer marketing, there are multiple layers of intermediaries, be it One level, maybe one of the dealer is involved. Maybe two level, maybe the dealer and retailers are involved. Maybe there is a three level, a distributor, wholesaler, and retailers are involved. So most of the time in consumer marketing, you would observe there is indirect channel distribution. With respect to the promotional P of marketing, the more emphasis in industrial marketing is on personal selling because sales force or salespeople, they act as a single point of contact. Whereas in consumer marketing, it is more of advertising and awareness kind of scenario. Because in industrial marketing, the companies or the people involved in company, they need a single point of contact. They don't want to deal with the accounting person separately, production team separately, logistic team separately, IT team separately. So they need a single professional marketeer or a business development officer or a sales executive who understand the nitty-gritties of the coordination. So with respect to the price characteristics, in case of industrial marketing, it is bidding, negotiation, competitive pricing. It is very, very popular. But in consumer markets, it is the MRP or the discounted price or the net price is very, very popular. There are a few examples of industrial market products such as photocopier, generator, tire, steel tubes. Whereas in case of consumer market, it is toothpaste, shampoo, soaps. These products are for family consumption is very, very important for them. So this was the difference actually between what consumer market and how it is different from industrial market. Now moving on to the another topic, that is the factors influencing consumer behavior. On ideal grounds, broadly speaking, there are four factors and then there are sub factors. For example, one is economical factor, one is personal factor that is influencing consumer behavior, then is psychological factor that is influencing consumer behavior. The another is cultural and social factors that is impacting consumer behavior. So under these broad categories, we will study the subcategory. For example, in personal factor, we'll study age, occupation, life cycle stage, lifestyle, personality. In psychological factors, we'll study motivation, learning, perception, attitude, involvement. In cultural factors, we'll study culture, subculture, social class. In social factors, we'll study social groups, opinion leader roles and status. In economic factors, we'll study the income factors, we'll study the credit factors, we'll study the standard of living factor. So, likewise. So first of all, we'll broadly talk about the factor and then we study the sub factors under the broad heading. So these are the main factors that influences the consumer behavior in a nutshell. So now moving on to the detailing part of each and every component, the cultural, social, psychological, organizational, the four P's, the internal environment, the external, micro, macro factors, psychological and psychographic factors. So first of all, talking about the marketing stimuli given by the organization with respect to the product, price, place, promotion, and the macro factors such as the economic forces, technological forces, political forces, and cultural forces. These are some of the factors that would create an impact on the mindset of the consumer before they go for the final buying. And then the cultural and social factors, as I've already spoken about these factors earlier, personal and psychological factors, I have already given you the hint while discussing in the main diagram. And the family life cycle is a very important concept when you study the consumer behavior. So you need to understand the consumer that you are dealing with is at which stage of family life cycle, whether he is a bachelor or a young single adult, or whether he is married, or whether he is a parent with at least one child living at home, or he is at the post-parenthood stage wherein an older married couple with no children at home, or the dissolution, whereas we have lost one of the spouse and we are left with only one surviving spouse. So, it is actually different series of stages that a consumer passes through. And these series of stages needs to be understood because at each and every series of stages, the different products and services are being sold. So that is why at each stage they are recognizing different problems. For example, at bachelorhood, they are not concerned with the dishes, with the furniture, but once they are married, they are more concerned with the dishes and the furniture and the white goods. Once they become parent, they are more concerned with child-related products. Cerelac comes into picture all of a sudden, diaper comes into picture all of a sudden. So child related products they're more concerned with. So at the post parenthood, they are more concerned with religious kind of products. And if they are, left with one surviving spouse and they are becoming senior citizens, so their, choices of products or brands are different altogether. So as a marketeer, it is very, very important that you study everything. So you study first of all the culture because it's the culture that is guiding the perception and the behavior of the consumers. For example, a child grown up in US has got a different culture as compared to the child grown up in India. So a US grown child is more of achievement and success and activity and practicality and material comfort orientation. Whereas a child grown up in India is more towards care, honesty, integrity, hard work, success, and sacrifice related products and services is more concerned. So then you need to study the subculture because we are living in the world of subculture. The preferences of Hindus as compared to Christians or the preference of people living in North and South are different with respect to the products and services they are consuming. So you need to find out whether you're selling to a product to a Hindu or a Muslim or a Catholic, or it is whether it is for a North zone or East zone or South zone, or if it is an international scenario. Are you trying to sell your product in Middle East or in China or in US or in Europe or in Nordic countries? Because these subcultures or these different subgroups, they require a different set of marketing mix for them. So that's very, very important that you study a culture and a subculture and a social class basically, because there are different divisions with respect to classes, and these classes share similar values, interests, and that's how they behave in a particular fashion. So, it is actually measured by your occupation, your income. For example, defense has got a different class, teachers are in a different class, doctors are in a different class. So, depending upon your occupation, income, and education, these classes are actually formed. So that is how a buyer is basically dependent upon social class, subculture, and culture that a marketeer needs to be, well versed with before adopting a marketing mix for these kind of buyers, actually. And the social factors include the family, the groups that you belong to, the your role and the status in society. And based upon your groups, be it primary or be it secondary or be it an aspirational groups, based upon the opinion leaders, based upon the influencers, based upon the trends, actually the buying takes place. So teacher is an opinion leader for a student who is trying to buy a book set, right? So for example, if a student belongs to an MBA domain and he is buying all the books for semester one, so he would rather buy a set recommended by a teacher for semester one, two, three, four instead of going to a particular bookshop or instead of going to Amazon or e-commerce platform. He would rather take a set from the library itself or the coaching center who is providing the services of teaching. Then family is the most important factor before that you belong to. So if your wife has told you to buy a particular color to a husband or a variant or a style that she's preferring to, then husband would probably end up buying that particular brand or a style or a product. So, you have a status also in the market. A senior VP has more status than a sales manager. So they would rather buy a luxury or more premium brand that would enhances their status in the mind of the people or in the mind of the groups that they belong to. That is very, very important that you study these social factors and the status. So, very important that which group you belong to, you need to consider your family, your status, what role you are referring to. Apart from this, there are personal factors. What is your age group? The family life cycle stages, occupation, lifestyle, personality. What is your income? So, based upon your personal factors, you may end up buying a different product category as compared to a demographic group number two or a geographic group number two. So, a blue collar worker will buy work clothes, whereas a white collar person will buy party suit. So the situation is totally different. So economic situation also you need to consider the income factor, the saving factor, the interest rate factor, so that you can create, EMI schemes for your target market. Lifestyle is one of the factor under the personal factors, and it is the way that you live. It is the pattern of living, right, in the world. So kind of activities you perform, the interests you develop, the opinion that you have would actually create a lot of impact on the marketeers and their strategies being created. So your personality and your psychological characteristics would play a broader role while buying of products and services. So personal influence, psychological factors such as how do you get motivated, what is your perception about a product, what are your learnings, what are your beliefs and attitude, they create a major role in terms of creation of your ad campaign. So motive is very very important. So in consumer behavior we are trying to understand at which stage of need you belong to, and based upon that need you are motivated enough. So there are different theories on different levels of needs, for example the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you need to understand your customers, your target market, whether they are at psychological need or a safety need or a social need or an esteem need or a self-actualization need. So based upon the need that you're trying to serve, you need to create your ad campaign so that those people gets motivated accordingly. So, psychological need belongs to food, water, shelter, clothes related product categories. Safety needs related to security and protection related equipments or products. Social needs is basically that, sense of belonging and love aspects of buying a products and service. And likewise, self-esteem needs talks about your recognition status in the market, and so on and on and on. So, your perception has to be really positive towards the product that you're buying or a brand. So if you hold a positive perception, then only you will go ahead with the buying of that particular products and brands. So the perception has got various dimensions such as selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention. And people have a tendency to screen out the information to which they are exposed to. So, they'll be very selectively attentive for your information. And they'll interpret information in a way that would support what they already believe. And they will only retain the good points that will favor, their type of brands. So this perception is very, very important, that needs to be positive. And people learn from their experiences, and this learning actually changes their behavior in the longer run. So that is how the drive, stimuli, cues, responses, and reinforcement comes into picture. So there has to be a good learning experience after the purchase of the product or before the purchase of the product. Only then people will buy your products and services if the learning is good enough. So, the psychological factors also include the belief people have, the kind of thought that a person has about something, on the knowledge, opinion, and faith. So, belief about a particular country, for example, if it is made in Germany, so German engineering is very, very popular. German architecture is very, very popular. Japan is very famous for quality. France is very famous for perfume brands. So made in, a particular country name, or the reputation of that particular country, or the perception you hold for that country will actually help you out in buying of products and services. So your attitude has to be positive. Your feelings has to be positive towards a particular object and idea. Only then you will act favorably or unfavorably. You will be emotionally positive feelings holder as compared to a product for which you have a negative attitude. And you will act toward the object and idea. If you like that particular religion, if you like that particular music, if you like that particular brand, your attitude will actually fit into that offer. So people try to build a positive attitude. For example, Eureka Forbes develops a lot of products, and they showcase their salespeople for demonstrations, and they offer that will provide you a free demonstration based upon the quality of the water in your premises. So, a salesperson from Eureka Forbes will receive a positive attitude from the consumer as compared to the salesperson from a local brand for which the consumer has never heard of. So, attitude is very, very important that can be developed positive through ad campaigning. So I hope you have got an idea about how industrial market is different from consumer market and what are the factors that affect consumer behavior. So with this, I would like to end this video and thank you all for listening to my content. Thank you very, very much.